Welcome aboard, applicants. I thought we would begin today with a question 2 from the Criminal Law June 2014 Baby Bar. So let's take a look here, and let's take a look at our call of the question where we begin with every single essay. Let's read. What charges can reasonably be brought against Steve? Discuss. 2. What charges can reasonably be brought against Will? Discuss. So let's take a look at that. The word charges here should instantly get us to think of something. One area of our 3 areas of law, absolutely criminal law. And so both of these are saying charges here. So we have 2 calls implicating that we have an area of law, criminal law. Let's set up our answer now according to our calls to the question. Charges. Let's see. What charges can reasonably be brought against Steve? You could say, how about this? You could say Steve's crimes, and then come down here and say Will's crimes. And then we want to make sure to bring this into our question as our answer as well. State v. Steve. And down here under Will's crimes, State v. Will. Okay, now we also want to make sure that right after this, since we know our area of law, we're going to put down our shopping list. One capital letter will suffice. Murder, structure, theft, crimes against the person, our acronym for that one, solicitation, conspiracy, attempt, and defenses. Copy and paste that underneath Will, and we should have this thing so we can begin reading. Right here. Okay. I think I'll bring this down to the next page so that we can all see this. Okay, let's see what we have here. Excellent. Fantastic. Okay, let's come back up and read. Will asked Steve, a professional assassin, to kill Adam, a business rival, and Steve accepted. Now, before Steve was scheduled to kill Adam, Will heard that Adam's business was failing. Will told Steve that he had changed his mind and no longer wanted to kill him, or wanted him to kill Adam, But Steve responded that he was going to kill Adam anyway. Steve assaulted Adam late at night on a dark, deserted street. Adam resisted so vigorously as to put Steve's life at risk. Steve finally overcame Adam's resistance and succeeded in killing him. So right here, we've read through once in what we like to call the movie mode, so we get a big picture as to our facts and our fact pattern. You probably have observed that this is a shorter fact pattern in a criminal law context, and probably one of the shortest that I've seen. But even in a short criminal law fact pattern, what we're going to be looking at here is what we're going to be observing is the detail upon every single fact from every single sentence. So let's do that now through our second read. Will asked Steve, a professional. Okay, asked. Well, what would that go to for Will? Absolutely, solicitation. So let's put that down now. Right up here, solicitation. Okay, now up here, after asking Steve, a professional assassin, to kill Adam, a business rival, and Steve what? Accepted. So within one sentence, we have both the solicitation and the conspiracy. Right here, solicitation. Want to make sure to talk about merger. I should bring this, probably, there, yeah. Set, probably space between the two. Merger, conspiracy, and what is it too that we could bring Steve in for here as well? First crime, conspiracy. Okay, excellent. Okay, now, before Steve was scheduled to kill Adam, Will heard that Adam's business was failing. Well, at this point, this is more of a foundational background fact support, a supporting fact that we're going to use later on within a different criminal law issue. Will told Steve that he had changed his mind. Okay, changed his mind here. In our mind would go to two things possibly. Does this mean that the conspiracy, the acceptance for a conspiracy, is what's being talked about here? No, because see, the conspiracy was actually solidified up here when Will asked Steve, and then Steve accepted. This would go to something within the conspiracy context as a defense to the conspiracy that Steve may bring up, and that would be withdrawal. So let's record that right now. And remember, withdrawal carries both a common law and a model penal code definition. For the common law, all Steve would have to do, excuse me, all Will would have to tell Steve is that he will, like he did up here, had changed his mind and no longer wanted Steve to kill Adam. Okay? It's not relevant that Steve responded that he was going to kill Adam anyway, but it will be relevant later under Steve's issue. We're just talking now about the issue of withdrawal concerning Will. It's not relevant what Steve responded at this point. All that's relevant is, did Will communicate or renunciate, or notify the other co-conspirator, Steve here, that Will, was going to, had a change of mind, no longer wanted to go through with the conspiracy. Absolutely. So under the common law at this point, Will would not have any further liability, but he would still be liable for the conspiracy, but not any further liability. However, if we're using the model penal code, not only would Will have to notify Steve that Steve has renunciated the particular criminal objective of killing Adam, Will would also have to thwart the crime in some way, notify the proper authorities, and effectuate a thwarting of the crime. We don't see that happening here. All we see is Will telling Steve that Will had changed his mind, and that Will no longer wanted Steve to kill Adam. Okay, so if we follow with a model penal code analysis, Will be liable for all the crimes committed by Steve. Okay, so let's read further here. Steve, now we find out that Steve responded that he was going to kill Adam anyway. There's your intent to kill possibly aspect for Steve. Steve assaulted Adam late at night on a dark, deserted street, leading up to this additional aspect of the possible, aggravated assault. Maybe I'll bring that out here. And then Adam resisted so vigorously. So Adam resisted. This resisted aspect might be a defense for Steve later on. That resisted so vigorously as to put what? Steve's life at risk. What does that sound a whole lot like to you? Absolutely, a self-defense claim or a self-defense justification argument. Steve finally, but remember, I should add this, the initial aggressor, that's what this was going to up here, that Steve assaulted Adam late at night. The initial aggressor does not, even though they may try to argue self-defense, the initial aggressor doesn't get to enjoy that defense because they are the initial aggressor. Steve finally overcame Adam's resistance and succeeded in killing him. There's the homicide that was being talked about up here under this paragraph, that it was brought about here under the second paragraph. And therefore we can bring that now up under Steve, because we also have a big enough picture in terms of our issues that we can start going through our shopping list as well. Do we have a murder? Yes, we do. Let's write that down here. Homicide of Adam. Okay, so we've taken care of that. Do we have any structure crimes? No. Do we have any theft crimes? No. Do we have any crimes against the person? Well, that's what we talked about. Possibly aggravated assault. That would actually become an aggravated battery, because up here we see that Steve finally overcame Adam's resistance. The overcoming of Adam's resistance would definitely be enough for that aspect of harmful or offensive contact. So we could even argue that there's an aggravated battery as well. Make sure to get briefly talk about these and move into the meatier issue of homicide of Adam. We talked about crimes against the person now. We already talked about the solicitation conspiracy. We don't have any attempted crimes here. And we already discussed the defense of self-defense here. But we already understood that Steve was the initial aggressor. And remember, initial aggressors do not get to enjoy the self-defense justification. But he may be able to say the voluntary manslaughter argument of imperfect self-defense. So we want to make sure to mention that. And as we fill out our shopping list, or I should say our templates from our shopping list, we'll be able to fill this out a little bit better. Then we will want to make sure to bring in conclusion. So something we want to strive to put into each one of our issue spotting lists. Okay, down here, state v. will. We have solicitation, merger, conspiracy. The withdrawal argument that we talked about. Was there a murder? Absolutely, there was a homicide of Adam. Okay. Was there a structure crime anything involving will for a structure crime? No. Was there a theft crime? No. Crime against the person, we already talked about that. We're going to come up here and cover that under two things. I would argue accomplice liability. Well, first, let me right after conspiracy, I want to put this in a logical order. We would throw in Pinkerton's rule. All reasonable acts in furtherance of the conspiracy committed by Steve would be attributable to Will here. Accomplice liability may be implicated here because it was Will who knew a lot about Adam, possibly where Adam might be found, because of him, Adam being a business rival of Will. And you may be able to argue some aspects about where Steve found Adam late at night on a dark, deserted street. It's arguable that the location that Steve found Adam was given to him by Will, or you could say that, yeah, I think that would be a reasonable argument. And then they have accomplice liability, possibly, I was going to say maybe even accessory before the fact, possibly. I just want to put that in there. And then I'm going to put it in parentheses here, so we make sure to consider it. Okay, now we definitely want to make sure to put withdrawal right up with the conspiracy here, as right after Pinkerton. Thank you. I'm sorry, before Pinkerton. Thank you for your patience. Okay, perfect. Now coming down here, we don't have any. We already talked about solicitation, conspiracy, no attempt. We already talked about the defense of withdrawal here, and then we want to make sure to throw in our conclusion. Yes. Absolutely, very good point. That Will would have to give Steve the description of Adam. That's very good. Let me throw that in there. Some things we could put in our accomplice liability discussion would be location of Adam, and description of Adam. Very good. Very good. Those would definitely have been supplied to Steve by way of will. Okay, and let me come up here. One last read. Oh, and his name. That's exactly good too. Description. We'll come down here and put that in there. Description of Adam. Name of Adam. Exactly. Very good. One last read through so that we don't well, actually, we don't read too fast and miss some issues here. Will asked Steve. We already talked about that as being the solicitation that Will committed, and when he asked Steve asked Steve to commit a crime. Professional assassin to kill Adam, a business rival, and Steve accepted. There is the conspiracy. That's what we talked about down here. The solicitation, the merger, which solicitation merges with conspiracy upon the agreement, but conspiracy does not merge with the target crime. Let's come back up here now. So there was a completed conspiracy here. Before Steve was scheduled to kill Adam, Will heard that Adam's business was failing. This would be supporting facts for that withdrawal defense that we talked about, that Will may argue. Will told Steve that he had changed his mind. The change his mind aspect is that trigger fact that would get us to be thinking in the direction of the withdrawal, common law withdrawal versus the model penal code withdrawal. Is this liable for the target crime? Is Will liable for target? Yes. See, that's what we're talking about here. Under the common law, he would be liable for the target crime, or I should say this, he'd be liable for the conspiracy. But and that's a great question. Would he still be liable for the target crime? Yeah, under the common law, because he withdrew, the argument could be raised, no, he wouldn't. Okay, the carrying out of the target crime. But he would still be liable for the conspiracy itself. But under the model penal code, he would be liable not only for the conspiracy, but also for the target crime and all the criminal acts that result from committing the target crime. And that's what we talk about up here for Steve. Just jumping ahead a little bit, this would be our aggravated assault and battery of Adam. So that if under the model penal code aspect of withdrawal, because Will did not thwart the crime in notifying the proper authorities and effectuating a thwarting of the crime, Will would still be liable for even not only the conspiracy and the target crime, but everything that reasonably flowed from committing the target crime. So that's what this sentence goes into when it says Will told Steve that he had changed his mind and no longer wanted to kill him. Now, but Steve responded that he was going to kill him anyway. Down here, what does that go to? We want to make sure to pull that out. That's definitely an intent to kill, murder aspect. That I'll put this in here, that Steve, right here, up here, he says he was going to kill Adam anyway. Steve was going to kill Adam anyway. Okay. That fact would definitely feed an intent to kill murder aspect. And then down here, Steve assaulted Adam. Oh, misprison for Will. Very good point. You could throw that in. I think definitely a brief discussion of that would definitely be of importance here. Excellent. Misprison, which is the withholding of information leading to the arrest of a co-felon, which would have led to the arrest of Steve. If Will had any information that he withheld from the proper authorities, he might be chargeable with misprison. He knew and did nothing. That's exactly right. Very good. He did nothing to thwart the crime. He knew the crime was going to be committed, and he did nothing to thwart it. Miss Prison, definitely. And then Steve. So Steve assaulted Adam. We already talked about that. The aggravated assault aspect at night on a dark, deserted street. Oh yes, Adam resisted so vigorously as to put Steve's life at risk. Now this is the Adam resistance is where we get this aspect of self-defense underneath the homicide of Adam as the justification that Steve would try to bring. Remember, he's the initial aggressor, though. How do we know that? He was the one that assaulted Adam late at night on a dark, deserted street. Then Steve finally overcame Adam's resistance. So there's another possible crime of aggravated battery, harmful or offensive contact, and then succeeded in killing him, which is where we get our full-blown homicide analysis. And so then we would definitely talk about voluntary manslaughter, imperfect self-defense as a fallback position that he would try to mitigate his homicide analysis down to a manslaughter analysis through the imperfect self-defense argument. And then we want to make sure too that we bring in involuntary manslaughter. Okay, right here. Okay, I think let me make sure we got everything here. Can you view any, or can you see anything else that may be an issue here? I don't see any. Is there any issue here that you see that we have not talked about? Looks good. Okay, excellent. Okay, thank you so much for tuning in. Hope you had a great time with this podcast and going over question 2 of June 2014. I want to put a shout out to Chess Cruncher TV. Keep chess crunching, Chess Cruncher. I also want to put a shout out to my Amazon Kindle book, Battling the Big Bad Baby Bar Essay Basics. Thank you again for tuning in, and God bless.